right? And obviously, you as teachers, it's a learning curve in reaching into the home, right? Because the dynamics is so different, right? And depending on the dynamics, you be like, man, this is above my pay grade. But yet and still you find yourself being the teacher, right? How does it feel? And I'll go on because I just don't want to prolong it, but I don't have teachers on all the time. So when I have them on, and then I don't have elementary teachers on all the time. So this is another one I want to put out there. And I think it's good for parents to hear your thought process, your heart. What is it like when you have a kid that they do like school, and you can tell that I have this kid's attention, but yet some of the other stuff gets in the way of them getting what they really need. How do you deal with those situations? Or no, I won't ask you how do you deal with them. If I'm the parent and you're having a conversation with me, what would you tell me to try to help my kid be successful in that environment? And when I say this kid, they're really not necessarily a bad kid, right? But what they're exposed to, what they're around, just seems to show up more than the good that's in the kid. And then as a teacher, obviously it gets to a point where you have to make some tough decisions. So I'm the parent, you have this conversation with me. What would you tell me, guys, whoever wants to go first? Because I really do want to equip parents, because I know parents, they just say, I don't know what to do. And like, it's from an honest, open place. Like, I don't know, I'm just overwhelmed. And so you get it. I have a kid in 4th grade, I got a kid in 7th grade, and I got a kid in 10th grade. So you're dealing with all these that's a lot. I get it. But what would you tell me if this is, I've sent you the nasty emails, boy. Ooh, Miss Charmaine, I got some words. And ooh, you, Mr. Treese, and all your math numbers. Like, what would you say to me as a parent?
Before I answer that question, I just want to put out there that before a student has to be sent to an alternative school, there are a lot of steps in between then um, that are done to help put this child on the right track.
Got you. Got it. Yes.
They aren't just sent away for 1 or 2 instances.
Right.
So when children are sent to alternative schools, there are usually a long history of incidences that have happened, and usually they are violent incidences like fighting or continuous bullying or whether you bring certain things to school that you're not supposed to bring to school. Right. That is the absolute last resort. And that's what I want to say first. That is the absolute last resort, because other parents are sending their children to school, and they're not sending their children to school to be hurt verbally or physically. Yes. And so that is the last thing. There are a lot of steps that are put in between them, including regular sessions with counselors, because we have counselors on campus in elementary schools. And so there are a lot of things that happen in between initial talking to parents and then the last resort of being sent to an alternative school. And so when I'm speaking to parents, because 5th grade is a hard year, because you are you're a preteen. Yes. And so preteen behavior is a lot different than
oh my goodness.
Than K through 2 behavior. And so you have a preteen, they are all of a sudden more interested in friends and social media, and they're just trying to figure things out as their bodies change. So there are a lot that comes with teaching an upper grade level. And so that's usually where we start, Mom, we're at the point where we're preteen. And so sometimes academics are not as important to students at this age, because they're more worried with socializing with their friends and more interested in social media. And so we always try to pinpoint what the issue is. Where are we having these issues?
Right.
Is it with me in my class? Is it with, in the reading class or in the science class? Where are we having these issues? And then we try to get to the root of the issue. And so I always like to have the student there with me. And so we can kind of talk about, what we're seeing and, what those actions are symbolizing or meaning. And so then we have a discussion with parents are you seeing this at home? Is this something that's new? Is this something that third and fourth grade teachers have told you in the past?
Right.
We need to have those discussions as well, because if this is something that's not new, we need to understand why it's still happening.
Right.
And try to create a plan from there. So after we identify what the problem is, we try to think about possible solutions. And so then we decide whether counselor is needed at that time, or will we be looking for that in the future. And so if this is a child that's constantly having issues, we think about setting them up with a mentor, whether it's someone from the high school who's doing well, or another teacher. So I have a lot of male students that sometimes they just need a male teacher because they may not have a father. And so we definitely look into that as far as creating a mentor and, kind of guiding them in the right direction. And so I've had that happen this year and last year. And I've noticed that setting them up with a mentor does a lot of good. And so the mentor is now a part of the village as well. And so there are just a lot of steps that are taken in order to basically put your feet on the right path and get your feet moving on the right path. So we decide what the problem is, decide the solution for now, and then we say, okay, mom, we'll talk again. We'll send you messages on our app, had a good day, or we did not have such a good day. And so we try to keep an open line of communication so parents can know if what we're doing is working, or do we need to come back and reevaluate the situation.
Man. Go ahead, Ms. Charmaine. I won't touch it.
I teach second grade. So I do a lot of the same things that my sister does with fifth grade, but it's a little bit different. Second grade is kind of like that grade level where students start identifying, how my behavior and how my academics are compared to my peers. So academically, academically and behaviorally, if I do have a student that is struggling, I try to exhaust everything that I can within my classroom before I start involving other people. So if it's behavioral, I try to, I have different incentives in my classroom, like treasure box, if your behavior is really good.
Plan. A behavior plan.
Yes. So we have behavior plan. I also have like different treasure box incentives. Like if you were doing an amazing job at the end of the week, you can get something from the treasure box. Maybe our behavior still is not well. Maybe we need to lose some recess minutes or some class dojo points. But if I notice, maybe my contingencies inside of my classroom are not working, then I start involving the parent and I start, showing them, talking to them about what I'm seeing in the classroom and how I try to address it, and let them know, these things were not working. So what do you suggest that needs to happen next? Or what can you do to help us out here? Because when your behavior is not appropriate, it also affects others in the classroom, and also affects your that child's academics also. If it's something that is academic and I'm noticing, I'm working with you in a small group, I have interventionists come in helping, and something still, you're still not improving, then obviously the parent is still involved in that situation. And we have conversations about what I'm seeing in the classroom, maybe something that they're seeing at home also, and how we can work together to help them improve. But say, for instance, the behavior and academics are still not improving, and myself and the parent have been working very hard on that, then, I talk to my administrator and counselors and other support staff to help us out to see where we can really help that student improve in academics or behavior, or sometimes both. But there's lots of documentation. There is lots of steps that we take before children start getting moved to different programs, like a behavior program, a special ed program, or maybe a whole nother campus.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that's man. I appreciate you guys taking the time to be very thorough. I did it. I wanted to attack it or address it, not attack, but address it that way because I wanted you to explain. I wanted to dispel the myth of, nobody cares about my kid or they're throwing your kid away. There are processes, there are systems in place for these types of things. Once again, we're only as successful as our children are. I'm telling you, it's if they're not successful, we're not successful.
Right.
And I can guarantee you there's so many days that these two young ladies go home, despite everything else that they're dealing with. There are days they go home and it's like, did I let that kid down? Did I fail that kid? Right? Not because they didn't go to school and were trained and they love, but when you see a kid that's not getting it, or you've been giving a portion of stewardship for the kid, what they go through affects you and you just don't shake it. It's just not, it's not like grading a paper and flipping it over and going to the next one. Like you take it home, you live with it. It's a part of you. So when you find that, those are indicators that, okay, my work's cut. First off, my work is cut out for me, but I'm constantly trying to find ways that we're going to help this kid be successful. And so, as much as I have the opportunity, and as long as God bless me with this platform, when I can have educators on like yourself, I want to have these conversations because what I feel like, it's like I get a chance to be with you guys and we have a conversation. Then on the other side, I don't know if I can have some of the parents on the podcast. That would be like, it may feel a little Jerry Springerish. And it's rightfully so because I understand, what happens when frustration sits in. Now, is all of the frustration right? I won't say that. But then is all of the frustration wrong? I wouldn't say that either. But when you have someone that's just frustrated and then there's been the time period on it, obviously there's a way to vent or get that off. So it's not so much as one-sided, but I do want to put information out that challenges some of the thought processes that we know that's going on in our communities and in our families. So, man, oh, wow, New Balance podcast. Our teachers, man, y'all have dropped some serious dimes on today. I have definitely learned some more. Even though I'm not a teacher, one of the things that we're called to do is we want to support the school system. We want to support our teachers. And they were talking about mentors. It's not a shameless plug. That's one of the things that we do, especially our young men. And that's where we start at 5th grade. You're looking for mentors. You're looking for a team. You're looking for someone that has a plan to come in and assist what you're doing. They call it mentors. They call it big brothers. They call it a myriad of things. We need to connect. You should connect with me and my team. We have the answer to your problems. We've seen the results of this change. It's not without effort. It's not without work. But like I said, at the end of the day, it is about our children and our young people being successful. And when they're successful, we are successful. So I want to transition from this portion of the podcast because I couldn't have on not one but two teachers and hear the different perspectives from the age, also just two different perspectives from sisters who do the same thing. I love that. I'm pretty sure there are times where you guys you bounce ideas off each other, or you get the good and maybe the bad. You can play bad. See, it'd be easy to play good cop, bad cop with each other. You try it out and you're like, oh, I think I'm gonna go with that, right? And I think it's unique, just a unique situation. So the other thing I'm really, really excited about, and we still got plenty of time left, and I want to really exhaust this because in meeting you guys, I didn't know that you were teachers first. I met you as entrepreneurs, and we're just coming off the heels of Black History Month, and it's always a phenomenal time. It seems like it's never enough time to celebrate everything and all the things. But when we look at our history and we look at things that we've accomplished and things that we are continuing to accomplish, I love having on entrepreneurs. So I met you guys as entrepreneurs, and you both are newly published authors, correct?
Correct.
And dun, 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 dun. And we see that Spencer's new
It's new
home.
home.
Yeah, so I have my copy. Stay tuned to the end of the podcast. I'll tell you where you can get your copy. Go out, go buy like 20, 30, 40 of them, and just bless everybody with them. This is a great piece of work. And I really want to now, like I said, transition and talk to the entrepreneurs, the business women, the mindset of being entrepreneurs. I believe God gives all of us a bag, right? And I absolutely agree with you, having your career and going out and fulfilling that, right? But I also believe inside of us, there are some other things that God has given us. And sometimes, depending on your choice, sometimes we're happy just to do that thing, and you can have a 30-year career doing that and this, or I may do this. But then there are some of us who believe there's more. And this book, there's so many things that I get from the book. Obviously, I won't try to talk about them all. That just means I just have to have you guys come back on for another session. Let's just do that. Let's just say that right now. But there are a couple things about the book I kind of want to pull out, and I want you guys to talk to me. And I want to ask questions. I like asking questions. So these questions I wrote down and I wanted to ask you. As it relates to this particular book, being entrepreneurs, what are you guys, you sisters, Shatrice, Charmaine, what are you guys carrying on the inside of you that can change the world? Talk to me about that, because when I see this changes the world. This is life-changing to me. Talk a little bit about what that is for you guys.
We just felt like now was a great time, especially during the pandemic, since we had some time on our hands, in which we kind of didn't, because we had to work a lot harder during the pandemic.
Oh my God,
we
yes,
ever
you did.
have.
Yes, you did.
As teachers, we had to learn so much technology. But during that time, we really realized that a lot of life experiences that we had led us to taking it seriously that we should write a book, because it's something that we've just said in passing. We've just been like, oh, we should write a book. And we just thought, oh, yeah, we should. And so during the pandemic, we had some experiences that really made us say, you know what, now is the time that we are going to take what started off as just a silly idea to us and make it our reality. And so that's kind of the thought process behind that.
Okay.
Yes. So we kind of wrote the book just because as teachers, we kind of see many books that were in our library that were kind of given to us. And we've also have our own library books that we added to our classrooms. And so we really wanted to put out a book that showed representation. It had pictures of that kind of relate to the students that we have in our classroom. Many of the things that I was doing during the pandemic, I was like, you know what? I can definitely put this into a book because as a teacher, a while back, I was in a certain district, and I would a lot of times get books that we would do for a read aloud, and I would have to create questions and circle maps and things like that. So I was like, you know what if we did a book? I wrote a book and had a lot of that content that we were already creating, and just put it at the back of the book, and we could possibly help another teacher that needed that support and maybe just didn't have the time. Because when we think back around the pandemic, when we decided to write this book, we were working a lot. We didn't really have very much time, and we would have loved to have something like a book like this that had the content already laid out for me that we could have used instead of coming home after work, staying up until the wee hours into the morning. And so we that was our purpose for why we decided to do this.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. So obviously, like you said, you had the idea, you had the thoughts, and you were like, well, like you said, it kind of maybe felt like maybe it's a silly idea, but at the bottom of that, you talked about, you said the word representation. I think that's so important in your line of work and what you do. And when I think about how when we, when we have these type of ideas, or to us they seem like, well, it's just an idea.
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually step out, like no sense room evidence, right? Maybe not even knowing how it's gonna happen, but yet you believe that it's something to it. Now you produce something. When you do something like this will outlive you. Like, have you guys thought about, like, one day, this, when I'm no longer here, this book, some family, some mother will pick this up and read it to her daughter, or some little girl will read this book that, like, I'll never meet. Have you talk about that part of it? How does that make you feel to know that I'm changing the narrative? I'm also changing the trajectory of generations to come just through this obeying and following a dream, a gift. I want to hear you guys' thoughts on that, because that's how, to me, that's how powerful it is, right? Give me your thoughts on that.
I mean, when we were writing this book, we felt like during the pandemic,
Yeah,
we had to work really hard. And so at that
right.
point, we were just kind of thinking, well, if we can figure out all the things that we had to figure out as teachers during the pandemic,
We can
sure,
figure
we can
this
figure
out.
out how,
Oh my
right, we
God.
can figure out how to do this book. And so that's why I'm a firm believer that struggle is not bad. Struggle really helps you to understand what you're made of. And so
Yes.
unless we have these problems, we're not going to ever think that we're stronger than what we believe. And
Yeah.
so it was in that moment that we just thought, you know what, we've worked really hard. So we should be able to figure out how to write a book, how to find an illustrator, and how to publish it. And so we didn't, I mean, we've been working since last year nonstop. And so, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never thought into it as in, this book will outlive me, and it's definitely creating a legacy for us. But it's definitely something to think about, because I mean, it really is. We never actually thought about it that in that way, but yeah. I mean, struggle is actually a good thing.
Yes, it
I
is.
think.
Oh, yes, I agree with you.
Yes, it's
Man.
very nice to think that, this book will outlive us. It'll be out there for children and generations to come.
Yes.
It wasn't in our mind when we created it. It was just something that we're like, what, let's try this. If we're doing all of this at work and doing this on our own time to be successful in the classroom, then let's go ahead and try it. Let's give it a try. And it's been a great experience. We've definitely learned a lot. And honestly, I would do it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, like, I named this, I feel like God gave me the name New Balance. I believe no matter who you are in life, all of us are in need of a new balance, depending the seasons and the time of life. We all agree that during the pandemic, all of us, in a greater or a lesser degree, we all needed a new balance, right? Depending on where we were. And you guys said it, like, the weight that was put on you guys to continue to have to teach, and then you had to evolve, learn this technology, still have the same passion, still have the same fervor, and to do it, in that way was a lot. But then to pick up and birth this, to
Yeah.
birth, people are like, oh, well, it's, no, I want to take time, because I want to encourage somebody who's walking around just like you guys, that have that idea that's, oh, well, it's just whatever. And what you don't realize is you have the answer to somebody's problem. It's inside of you. It's inside of you. So it's just cool. I think it's so cool. And then, so I met you as entrepreneurs. Then I found out you were teachers after the fact. So I'd already read it. So now my mind, my wheels are like, So when I think of representation, and for me, when I read this, I'm thinking, you guys already told me this is going to be part of a series, right?
Yeah.
Incredible, incredible. Not only is this so encouraging for children to read, I thought about parents who'll get this book, who's going to read this book. I hope that when parents get the book, right? Not only are they buying it for their children or whoever they want to bless with it to read, I hope parents get this book and they look at this book. When they look at it, I want them to say to themselves, something like this is on the inside of me. How do I get it out? Right? How do I get it out? So this is a new balance. I want you to talk about this being a new balance, but talk about how you evolve out of the new balance, right? Because obviously just teaching, that's like, to me, that's like 3-4 jobs. Being a teacher, it's a lot of responsibility.
Yes, it is.
So now you find yourself in the entrepreneur, you're business owner, like talk about wearing those hats now, like the feeling of it. Does it feel overwhelming? Is it a little scary? Or it's like, no, this is where I belong. I'm really ready to carve out my lane in this. Talk to me about how you guys, feel, because there could be, different seasons. Because, you do stuff like at 23, you should be doing this. When you're 27, you're supposed to do this, and so on and so on. I think it's time for us to break those mold in some of those cycles. And I think when you get the permission to do this, I don't care what your age is or what the season is, but when you get permission, I think you should do it. So I'm listening to you guys. You said during the pandemic, it sounded like you felt like you either gave yourself permission to step out and do it, or what's the whole process? Where are you as entrepreneurs? Talk to me about that.
As entrepreneurs, we and we've never actually thought of ourselves as entrepreneurs.
Well,
So hearing that
are.
is really interesting.
No. I'm telling you, you don't birth this. Like, it's just not a teacher that does this.
Right.
This is an entrepreneur. This is a business. This is an entrepreneur. This is a lifeline. Let me hold it up. This is a lifeline. Okay. I just want to reiterate it because every time I see you now, I'm like, hey, business owner, entrepreneur. Every time I talk to y'all, that's how I'm gonna address you going forward.
We never actually thought of ourselves as entrepreneurs. We just wanted to just over time, like I said, we had these different instances that made us just say, we should write a book. Before I taught math, I was a reading teacher. And so I would tell my parents, I would let them know how their student was doing, mid-year or, towards the beginning of the year. And so I would say, well, they read really well. It's just sometimes we don't comprehend what we read. And so, and, them being the awesome parents that they were like, well, Miss Williams, what can we do to help? Like, what do I need to go over? And I was just like, I don't actually have anything that you could do with your child. I don't actually have anything tangible that I can give you other than just sending home packets. And, we didn't want to packet our children to death, but I was just also thinking, I don't actually have anything. And so that was one instance where I was like, well, what if something was created? At that time, I was thinking, what if something was created already where I could tell parents of how they could assist their children.
Right.
Not thinking that I already had the answer. And this was at least 5 years ago. And so I wasn't thinking that I could do it. I was thinking I need to find something.
But wait a minute. You say 5 years ago?
Yeah, about 5 years ago.
This
5 years ago. And, we didn't start writing it until the pandemic. And so there were instances over the last 5 years that made us think, well, what if we did write a book? And so the last instance was what my sister talked about, of her making the extension activities. So like the extension activities that we have here at the back of the book, you can't really see them, right?
Yeah,
Those right there.
Yeah.
Those are items that my sister was making. She would read a book, and so she would then make those type of activities. And so we were just thinking, what if a first year teacher wanted to do this with her class? Because as we teach, when we find that our class did not understand something, we are then going to find something else. And so we can practice with our class. And so teachers are constantly thinking of other ways that we can, get the point across to our students. So, and that's where different learning styles comes in. So if they didn't get it one way, we do it with a different learning style. So we try to meet all the learning styles within our classrooms of based on what our students need. And so we were just thinking, a first year teacher doing this, I mean, they're going to be burnt out and exhausted and not want to come back. And so that was one thought that we had, was for other teachers. And then going back to 5 years ago, I was just thinking this is something that parents can read with their children, because as a parent, you need to read with your child every night. When they come to school at the age of 5 should not be the first time that they see a book. And so definitely we wanted to increase reading. We wanted to create a project where students in our classroom were represented. We wanted to help parents. We wanted to help parents, and we wanted to help other teachers. And so over the last 5 years, we've had interactions with all of those areas. And so that's what originally led us to go ahead and write the book.
Love it. Love it.
So when we did think about writing the book, during the pandemic, we thought we had a little bit more time than what we usually have, even though we were still working around the clock. But we felt it would be a good idea to go ahead and write a book and have those questions at the back, because before I taught second grade, I was a first grade reading teacher, and I'm still doing reading also with all subjects now in second grade. But many times, like my sister said, we have readers that are extremely well with reading, decoding. They can know every single word in the sentence or on the page. But when you ask them, okay, well, who was the main character, or where was the setting of the story, they cannot tell you. And many times when you're trying to move up a student to a new reading level, they cannot go to that next level because they were not able to comprehend what they read. So when I did meet with parents, I would tell them, hey, your child did an amazing job reading this all on their own. But when we got to the comprehension questions, they struggled a lot. So I would tell them some ways that could help, their child go to the next level, which was, comprehension questions. But many parents were like, well, what type of comprehension questions? And so that's where it got a little bit confusing with, it was mainly based on whatever you're reading. So we decided to go ahead and provide it for the parents. And also, like my sister said, provide these things for like a new teacher, because a lot of times as a new teacher, you get overwhelmed with everything, and even finding your own resources. Sometimes in some places you work, you have to find everything yourself or create everything yourself. So we were thinking, this would be really good for a new teacher. She would have everything, he or she would have everything they need, and they wouldn't be so frustrated or overwhelmed. And this could really help parents also.
Would you explain what a reading level is?
Oh, yes. So reading level, pretty much a reading level. So in kindergarten, typically you start off with very simple sentences like a cat can run. And so as you progress, it gets a little bit more longer sentences and a little bit different vowel and consonant combinations. So pretty much as it gets more, a little bit harder, you go to like different levels.
Okay. Wow. Man, I'll chase it because we'll come back. When you said that about the reading, like how they found out that I was dyslexic was I kept taking the tests, but it's like I kept failing it. And so I I can't even think of the name of the teacher. So they knew they had some type of relationship with me. And so the teacher had me come in and was questioning my effort. And I was like, no, I'm not goofing off, just marking different stuff on the test. So unbeknown to me, she's like, tomorrow I want you to get here early and I want you to come and I have something I want you to do. So I came to school the next day. It was like this test, right? She had me take it. I didn't think none of it. It didn't take long, about 20 minutes to take it. About a week later, she came back and she told me, I know why you're not passing the test. You are dyslexic. You need to have a specific test. Now, back then, that was like how people still feel about therapy. They say if you go to therapy, oh, he's crazy. And I never heard it. I never even heard of the word. So this is what I did. This is a true story. She gave me the information. So I want you to take this on to your mom and have your mom call me. So think about this. I'm a junior in high school. That letter never made it home. I'm like, this is my secret. Because in my mind, I was like, well, it means I'm gonna have to, I was thinking, y'all gonna take me out of regular classes. I'm gonna have to go do some other stuff. And so at that time, I was like, oh, I ain't gonna be able to play sports. I'm gonna be able to do this. Never took it. Never took it. So this is at the end of the year where back then we call it, I forget what it was called, the tax test or whatever it was called back then.
Yeah.
So school year ends. I'm having to take a couple of remedial classes because I didn't do well on it. This is the crazy part. The teacher did not come back the next year. So my mom, to this day, God bless her soul, my mom passed away 18, going on 19 years. She never knew that I was dyslexic. It was my dirty little secret. It wasn't until later on in life. So when I say that, what do they have like now? Because that teacher caught that when I was in the 11th grade. Like I only have one more year of school. So in my mind, man, what if they caught that in 6th grade? Maybe my grades could be different, or maybe I have to have a special book or something, or whatever the case may be. What they were labeling me, I wasn't. So I had all these different emotions about it. Now, the right thing to do, please, children, whatever information you find out that's like this, or something, you cannot not tell your parents. So that was wrong of me. Let me own that. But just so many other things were going on in my life, and I was just like, this is the last thing I need to hear. When you said that, it just triggered that in me. I've always wanted to like ask a question. So what do you guys have? Because maybe it's a parent that's watching and their kid, they're trying to figure out some of the things. Maybe they should have some tests done. Not saying it's this, but maybe it's something else. I'm not sure. Can you guys answer that?
Yeah. So I will say, as a primary age teacher, K through 2, there's many tests to diagnose dyslexia at an earlier age. So when I taught 1st grade, we had the dyslexia screener to kind of screen all the students and anyone that kind of maybe when they were reading CBC words, or maybe
what are CBC?
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe when they were reading 3-letter words, or maybe when they were just anything on the test, they go over like 3-letter words, sight words, nonsense words, which are 3-letter words, but they're not real words.
Right.
So maybe they did not do as well as the standard score on it. Then those students are flagged, and then they will have later testing for it later, just to ensure that maybe you do have dyslexia, or maybe to see what's going on, to help you at an earlier age, so that we're not catching things late. Because when you catch things a little bit later, it's very difficult for the child.
My goodness. So I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So that's for grades K through 2. On a bigger scale, teachers now are trained to being able to notice difficulties within students. And so
Okay.
we're trained in reading areas and we're trained in math areas. And so those are the two largest areas that we're trained in. And we're also trained as far as behavior to
Got it.
notice when students are like emotionally disturbed or
Mhm.
other psychological problems. And so we're able to now that we have more education, we're the first line of defense. And so when we notice things that are different with
Mhm.
students, then we can properly assess them, and then we are able to then take the next steps, which is to fill out paperwork. And so then
Right.
other specialists at that time will take what we say and then observe that student and test that student, of course, with the permission of the parents. And so then we're able to detect things earlier. And so
Right.
we are also trained to know that there are some students that fly below the radar, which means they're very quiet because they don't want you to know that there is something different.
Got it.
And so we're also trained to understand that when we start to see certain behaviors presented, like avoidance of work or
Mhm.
constantly having to go to the restroom when you really don't have to go to the restroom,
Right.
or during when it's time for reading time, then a student is all of a sudden acting differently. And so we just kind of take those different situations, and so we're able to notice things on a broader scale. And so I
Mhm.
think now the biggest thing that's different is the education of teachers, is that now we know what to look for within students in general.
Wow. Man, we needed that back in the day because we definitely didn't have any of it. And I'm so grateful. I'll think of her name a little later, but I'm so grateful that she had enough she knew something. And
Mhm.
I don't even know who suggested, if she suggested it or if someone suggested her give me it. I don't know who, but that's how I found out. Now, for me, I think the one good thing that came out of it was, for me, it made me feel like special, like, and not in a good way. But I've always had this determination about me. Like, I'm not going to let it, whatever it is, win. So it forced me to have to learn all these different techniques to learn, right? Especially reading. I understood then why I didn't really care for reading like that, because it was always a struggle. Now, obviously, I'm not, but I'm just thinking it's just myself, right? And so you fast forward all these years later. So now I end up getting married. I have a family of my own. And so now I'm having to, I feel like, and I don't feel like, I know I'm called to do these other things. And these are public things in front of people. And man, I have this in the back of my mind. Now I can't, at the time, I'm not mature enough or vulnerable enough to share with people what I'm struggling with. So I would always have to work hard and do this. And what a lot of people don't know, my wife is probably the only one that knows it. I would, like, just Bible reading scriptures. I would read it so much and I would remember it.
Mhm.
And then when I would get up, it would be though as I was reading. Because when I would get up in front of people, my hands would get palmy. I would get just almost anxiety. But I learned how to rehearse a lot of stuff, right?
Mhm.
And that's how I did it until I just say, you know what, I want to be healed from it. I don't want to, and I decree this day that I'm healed. I really rarely have episodes or that type of thing. I see it, different things from here and there. And a lot of times it depends on the assignment. I may get nervous about certain things, especially when I have to speak. Sometimes I do it, do teleprompter and different things like that. So I get a little that butterfly, but I have to just, okay, we good. We've been here before. Okay. And then I just start telling myself, so what, you may butcher up a word, right? I pray the people that are listening can understand it and receive it. And so what I want to do, one of the things I want to do is I want to encourage other kids who are struggling or parents who may know. I want them to be bold enough to go ahead and step out and get the help as soon as possible.
Yes,
And
that's important.
I think about now, if I never would have addressed it, I wouldn't be on the podcast with you guys. I wouldn't have written my first book, about to publish the second book, I wouldn't have all these opportunities to speak in all these different places. I wouldn't be all of the things that have been so life-changing. I would have missed all of them due to fear. So I'm telling you, talking to you guys about this seems like I won't call this easy. If it was just that easy, everybody would be doing it, but everybody's not doing it, right? And so I think it's important to try to pull back and peel the potato to see how the potato was made. And so another thing I want to talk about, I know we've been on it a while, but you've said it a couple times when you talked about the pandemic and the struggles of that. I want to make this statement, and I wrote it down. When you guys said this what came to my mind. God will shift what you trust so you'll do what he planned. I feel like this was planned by God for y'all. If the pandemic doesn't happen, this book doesn't happen. Well, at least I'm not holding it right now, maybe somewhere down the line. But I want you guys to kind of respond to that when we're talking about a new balance and then evolving. Like I said, I'm not trying to be, I don't want to, it's not a Bible study, but Abraham's name wasn't Abraham, it was Abram. He was like in his late 70s when God told him to leave his family to go. That's like a new balance. And then he had to evolve into Abraham. So talk about the new balance of your life and then evolving into the entrepreneurs, the business women in this book. Talk about it, how you feel like God shifted, the pandemic for all of us. I released my book during the pandemic. Yeah, 2020. That's like, really? Are you going to look? You going to what? The book. So talk a little bit about that, about the evolution of you guys. So.
Sure. I think during the pandemic, God really showed us some things about ourselves that were positive and some things that we can all grow from. Right. So I think during the pandemic, we had some tough times, especially, dealing with the unknown and being at home a lot, not being able to go places that we typically went to. So we had that time at home to really, grow in some areas. So, in that situation, we were able just to think to ourselves something that we really wanted to do. And we just, took a shot at it. God really guided us in this situation just because we had never done something like this before. We had to do a lot of research, and it just really, it was just really a learning moment. And we really learned some things about ourselves through this situation.
Wow, that's good.
I definitely think that during the pandemic, it caused us to have to be still. And I feel like during the pandemic, it caused everyone to have to be still because we had no other choice. Right. And I feel that when you are still, that's kind of when God is able to really speak to you and say, yes, I gave you this idea 5 years ago. I gave you this idea 3 years ago. I gave you this idea last year. And it's just like he was saying, I keep giving you this idea and you are not jumping on it. And so, and then doubts, come into your head and you're just like, we're just teachers. What are we doing writing a book? Will it even be something that will be helpful? How do we even go about doing this? We don't know. We didn't know the slightest thing about writing a book. And so but I also feel that because we have had to struggle in life. Both of us had to get our master's degrees. That was a lot of work because, we were going to school and teaching and staying after school for clubs and being the liaison over certain clubs and tutoring and also, getting a master's degree. And so I feel like also within that disciplined behavior that we have, it made it to where we were not afraid to make mistakes. We were not afraid to fail. We were just kind of like, okay, well, that didn't work. So let me think of another way. So that's just kind of how we did things because we were still. So we had multiple chances to try and figure out how to get this done. And so within having to be still, it really forced us to hone in on those characteristics that we have developed over the years. And we put all of that to work, and here's the finished product.
I love it. I love it. Spencer's New Way Home. Because I want everybody to go out and buy this book. I want to talk about the book, but nope, they got to buy it, read it for themselves. Maybe the next time we're together, we can talk about it. You said, obviously, this is going to be a series. You may not know the answer to this, but you know I'm going to ask it anyway. If you're looking at a scale, maybe in the next 2 years, maybe the next 5, maybe the next 10, where do you see this publishing and writing? Where do you see it going? Or are you hoping for, some different avenues, or, what tools are you looking to use it as? What do you guys think about it? Or is it still kind of early? You're still going through the process of, hey, we're authors and we have this product out there and we're trying to figure out how to move it, where to put it, those type of things. Because I was there too with my first writing, because I didn't write my book, even though I knew people would buy it. It was twofold. I absolutely wrote the book for my son. That was the whole intent. That was some parallel things that he were dealing with, that I was dealing with. And I thought it would be such a great tool for him if I could catch him 20 years earlier. Mm-hmm. And I could literally show him, like, son, these are the potholes. And if he could be so educated and be so on top of his game, he could avoid all of those potholes that I unfortunately found myself in. That was the heartbeat. It's my love. I tell him it's my love letter to him, and it's a playbook. And I told him there are different seasons in life where you'll be able to pick this book up, and whether you hear my voice or whoever, I don't care whose voice you hear, but if you just get the message that's in here. And obviously, he's 21 now. I wrote the book, gave it to him when he was 18, and I told him, yeah, it's exciting for someone to write your book, but I don't think it'll really, really be concrete until maybe your husband or father. So kind of talk to me about that. What's the thought process over these next 5 to 10 years as authors?
So we, of course, we're very much so thinkers, and so we're very our brain just really thinks about the projection of where we see certain things going. And so as far as our book, we were looking to first, publish it, get the word out. And of course, our next steps were to look for a bookstore that would want to carry our book. And so
there we go.
That's where we're in the process now. And so we're looking for bookstores that will carry our book. And then we're also looking for a school district to adopt our book, because the educational resources that are there, it's already laid out for you, and it's already written in the way that we teach it on a daily basis. So we really wanted it to be developed into the curriculum of a district. And then on a bigger scale, we have, as teachers, we've had author visits, and so very few of them represented the African-American side of things. And so that's something that we wanted to be able to do, is do author visits. Just because, on a smaller scale, we wanted to create a book that represented Black children in our classes. And on a bigger scale, we wanted to be the representation that are standing in front of them. So that's just kind of the road that we're looking to take right now.
Yes, I have the same goals as my sister for our book. We would definitely like to have it in a bookstore. Definitely like to get it in more different platforms. Right now it's on Amazon, but we would like to also get it on different platforms. Also do like the author visits. just so that we can go to different schools and talk about the writing process. Also show students, like your writing can take you somewhere.
Really
a lot of the different writing activities you do in class, it can possibly save, your writing so that you can turn into a very good book. So those are kind of the goals that we have at this time for our book.
I love it. I love it. I asked that just once again, hearing it from a different perspective, from a whole totally different playing field. Like when you're at home, you're thinking, okay, I have this inside of me. Is it enough just to, I'm gonna write it and get it out? No, you should think about what's the journey of it? What's the destination of it? So as I always say on here, the purpose is in the pain, it's in the problem. So I have in the struggle, you can't stop this blaze. It's birthed out of my void of not having my father. It's birthed out of me missing seasons and opportunities of those things that men should be teaching, men should be showing. So I said, okay, God, you speaking directly to me. Okay, no problem. You want me to go? I'll go. That's how it's birthed. Pressing community. It's about the community and the family. You guys know our communities, our churches, anything that has to do with family is only as strong as the families. If we can heal the family, the community is going to heal. The nation in turn will heal, right? Like out of all of the different shootings that we've seen of young Black men, the one that almost all of them ripped my heart, but the one that cut me the most was Tamir Rice. Here's this 12-year-old kid.
He was so young, yeah.
He was so young, but watch this. He was gunned down in a place where he should have been protected. He was at a community center. As a kid, I spent so much time at community centers. He was playing with the toy I play with. It was a cap gun. Obviously, the times when I think you should be a little more thoughtful with having that type of toy. But he was in a place that should have protected him. He should have been in a safe place. But obviously that place wasn't that safe. So these things are birthed out of the pain, right? Now it all has purpose. I started Strength for Today Publishing because we need visibility, representation. Who better? Who better? Who better? So ladies, thank you so much. I think when we go back and we look at these episodes and you hear, like, I know people that follow this, they're gonna be rewatching this one over and over. You guys share so many great things, and it's a unique perspective to have on. I don't get a bunch of teachers, so I'm going for it. I'm asking them everything that comes to mind. I'm asking them everything. You guys did such a great job answering and giving us not only hope, but you gave us help. And when we can get hope and combine it with help, that's when we can move forward. And then we can begin to tear down all of these different walls that keep us from being who God really designed us and desires us to be. New Balance Podcast. Show some love for Shatrice and Tremaine Williams. SNS.
SNS.
Now, ladies, please tell everyone where they can purchase this book, how they can connect with you guys, how they can follow the things that you're doing. Who knows? If you are, I don't know if you're a daycare or if you're a school. I'm working with an author now. She has she has an amazing children's book, but what God gave her is all the characters in her book, she brings the book to life when she reads it. She does like 6 characters in total. She's like a walking cartoon. I mean, she can do the voices. And I told her, I said, listen, we're going to help you write this book. But I'm telling you, if you don't believe to partner with schools to be able to go in and read this book and the storyline that goes with these characters, I'm like, you are short selling yourself. Like, you have such an incredible gift. So where can people connect with you for the book? How do they find it? Where can they buy it? If I'm ready to buy 100 copies, guys. So tell me, where can we get it? How do we do it?
Our book is on Amazon. And so you can just simply type in Spencer's New Home and it'll pop up.
Okay.
And in the next few weeks, our book will also be in our church bookstore, which is the Church Without Walls. It'll be in the Proverbs bookstore.
Yes. Awesome. Awesome.
And
awesome.
You can connect with us on Instagram. Our name is S_S Williams, and it's all lowercase. And that's where you guys can connect with us, see the different places or platforms you're able to get our book, and just to keep up with us with different events.
Upcoming events.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, you guys, you heard it from S&S. And listen, guys, in the comments, please tell them how much you enjoyed it. Tell them that you want them to come back so I can have them back and we can chop it up again and do this again, because I really enjoyed it. Well, that's our time for today. Once again, to my sisters, thank you so much for coming on the New Balance podcast. And as we always say before we get out of here, it is strength for today, sustenance for tomorrow. It's your boy, your potential conditioner, H2O, and we'll see you next episode. We love you. Peace.